Danny Grimes here, bringing you the mastery of real estate, and we're going to be doing some role plays. And for those people that are on Facebook Live or right on here live with me on Zoom, if you don't know, I do have a YouTube channel, Denny Grimes, the mastery of real estate. Everything we do is recorded and it's posted there. You can go back and take a listen. We also have some other free resources there that might be handy. If you're new to this gig, and I've got some veterans on, I should give merit badges for every year. It's almost been a year. Some here have been on 6 months, closer to the year. I've got some very regulars that are mastering this. They can fill in for me. Maybe I should let them teach and I can listen, because what we're attempting to do is teach mastery level, and the form that we use is all question-based, listening enhanced conversational scripts. And how many people that have been on this class a length of times? I know I got Andrew there, I got James, Sephra, we've had some private conversations, and with coaching sessions, et cetera, et cetera. How are you developing with your level of questions? Do you feel you're progressing based on exposure to this method of role playing?
Absolutely. I think it's hugely beneficial. I use it all the time, Denny, and in any real estate conversation. So I think it's fantastic. The more questions you ask, I think the better off you are.
Yes. Anybody else? Thank you so much, James. Hey, Don, welcome. Now, promise not to tell my wife this. This works with your spouse as well, even your kids. So if you want to help them, maybe rather than to tell them what to do, and I'm not suggesting you tell your spouse what to do, use the question format. Again, question-based, listening enhanced conversational scripts, and we use strategic questions. So I love a great question. And so I always have a thought of the day. And here's my thought of the day. I say this almost every week. I love having role play with my team because I learn so much. They're in the field. And if you're not, and some people on the call, generally I have Jeff Pennington on the call. He can't make it today. He's actually taken the lead in his office, and he's teaching the same thing to his agents. And what's interesting is when you have the opportunity to listen to other agents role play, it helps you because you're now listening. Sometimes there's a third party participant. So the more you do it, the better you get. So here's an aha that I had in the last couple of days. I have a new spin on the meat thermometer. Now that we call it the meat thermometer because I believe when you start with someone, basically, if they're lost, and they want directions, you want to ask them, well, where are you going, right? You start from where the starting point is. Where are they? And so the meat thermometer, as we call it, is the question we've said over and over again. It works for buyers or sellers. And if you haven't seen it before, it's right there. I'll just give it to you. It's based on your opinion of the market. There's no right or wrong answer. Do you feel the market's working in your favor or working against you? Now, let me ask you, that works for a buyer or a seller. It can be modified. And I'll say, hey, James, hey, look, you're a buyer in this market. Let me ask you this question. And there's no right or wrong answer. Do you think the market's working in your favor or working against you? So go ahead, just role play with me just a second, James.
Yeah, I definitely think it's working against me because every time I look at a house, it's sold before I can even get an offer in.
Yes. Anything else?
Well, I have to get financing, and all these people with suitcases of cash are beating me out every time.
All right. You find any other challenges? Now, what I'm doing is I'm modeling the isolation, guys. Remember, don't bite on the first thing they say. Now, watch. I'm going to give you the modification. We've role played this before. So you feel like the market's working against you. All right. So, yeah. And you told me basically, the houses are selling fast. They're selling for a lot of money, blah, blah, blah. There's a lot of cash in the marketplace. What if I said, you know what? I think basically the market is working in your favor. What would you say to that?
I would say, how do you see it working in my favor?
I always like to think, you guys, whatever decision one person's making, there's always the other side of it. Remember, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that I don't use the term, and I want my team to use the term. I'm going to ask you guys never to use the term seller's market, because it suggests the sellers win, the buyers lose. At least that's what it suggests to me, correct? So I call it the winner's market. Sellers are winning because their homes are, they're pocketing extra equity, correct? However, buyers are winning too, and this is the script. We're in a winner's market. Yes, the sellers are receiving extra equity as prices rise. However, when buyers enter into a contract, they begin riding the equity elevator up, just like the sellers. Now, won't that be fun? Now, wouldn't that be a change of mindset, basically, to a buyer who doesn't want to step into this market because it's uber competitive? So just think about that. And you can put something in the comments if you want to, and or if you want to speak out, you can, if you're in a quiet spot. Because what would happen if you gave them that information? Because let me just ask, who would like to tell me what would be the alternative for a buyer buying in this market? In fact, I was out walking today and I wrote down this question. So I'm going to go back to you, James. Describe to me, if you don't like this market from a buyer's perspective, describe to me the perfect market for you to buy in.
Well, a market where there'd be a lot more inventory and less competition for the properties.
Okay. Anything else? There's the isolation again.
Well, I'd sort of like to see some better pricing. I don't want to see this elevator cord get cut when I buy at the top and this market starts to drop.
So if I had a magic wand and I could make the market do that, would you like that market better?
Absolutely.
So then what you're saying is you would rather step into the market that's going down in price, correct?
Well, yes. I mean, moving somewhat down, I'd like to try to, catch the bottom. I don't want to jump in and ride it down to the basement.
Oh, as a buyer, wouldn't you want to do that?
Well, I wouldn't mind. Well, I don't want to lose equity the minute I jump in because it's going down past what I jumped in at.
So okay, let's assume now there's extra inventory. What is it? Does that put an upward or downward pressure on price?
Downward.
And there's less buyers out there looking because they feel the market's going downward. Does that put more or less pressure on price?
More pressure downward, right.
More pressure downward. So would you feel more comfortable buying a home today that's worth less tomorrow?
Yes, in this marketplace, I believe I would, because I've seen the roller coaster of this Arizona market.
Now, that's an interesting response and somewhat of a surprising response. Now, again, he's role playing the way he wants to role play. They could say that. However, in my mind, and you can pipe in here, James, and give me some color on that if you'd like. I'm guessing most people would probably say, no, I don't want to buy when it's less. The house is worth less every day. No, okay, so who would have a comeback for that? Not that I don't, but yours might be better. Anybody?
So you would rather lose money than make money?
Well, I would rather buy like a stock toward the bottom of its range than at the top of the range. So I don't think I'm losing money. I think I'm investing long term.
Now
how do you know where the bottom is?
Okay, good. He just built himself a little trap. Keep going, Nikki.
Well, you don't know where the bottom is, but how do you know where the top is?
I could pull out John's famous excuse. Well, if I knew that, I'd be sitting on a yacht.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you, let's fast forward a year. Let's assume now that you buy in this market, the house goes up. Or let's look at the other side of the coin. You buy in that market you're describing, in the market, the prices have fallen for a year. Which is a more comfortable position for you?
I'm still okay with it falling for a year because I got the house that I wanted at a price that I was comfortable with. So I believe that it will still appreciate in value over time.
Got it. So let's assume it goes up for 2 years or down for 2 years. How do you feel?
Well, I'm not as happy as if I bought it 2 years later, but I'm still okay because I got the house I wanted because there was more inventory. So I was able to get a selection and pick what I wanted and get a home that I wanted. So,
all right. So just one more question.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I won't even go there. Now, so before you wad them up and throw them away, there's one more thing that's in my mind that you could probably bring up. That would be a powerful lever. Does anybody know what that is? That would be motivation. So let's take price out of it. Let's just assume the market stays the same, doesn't go up or doesn't go down. and you're comfortable. He's mentioned that 2 times. You're comfortable with the number. Why are you doing this in the first place?
Well, because I wanted to find a house with a view and a pool that had everything I wanted, and this one does.
And you said it's for long term, right?
Yes.
So any short-term fluctuation up or down shouldn't affect you long term, should it?
No, realistically, it wouldn't.
So can you afford a home today?
In this falling market, yes.
No, in the market we're in now. This is not Disneyland.
Then no, not being Disneyland, I can't find the home I want right now.
Okay. So you're okay not having the things you just described, the home with a view, and you're gonna deprive your family of all that types of thing, right? You're okay with that?
Well, I don't look at it as depriving them. I don't want to bankrupt them by getting a house that I think is at a crazily inflated price.
Okay. I'm totally bored now. All right. That's okay. You know what? This is,
Sorry about that, Denny.
magic doesn't work on everybody. However, so my point is this, going back to the thought of the day is that when you're asking them if they think the market's working in their favor or not, and they say most likely a buyer's going to say it's not working in my favor, how would you like a different way of looking at that? Because the alternative is to buy in a falling market. And I believe most people would rather not buy in a falling market, because I can tell you from history, I've been in a couple of different market corrections. When prices are worth less, you think that makes buyers more or less rabid at stepping in. They really go to the sidelines, guys, because you know what? They know time is on their side, and they will remember with a vengeance what they had to go through in this market, and they'll make sure the sellers pay for it. So thanks, James, for being a tough guy. Okay, so
You're welcome.
You're welcome, I bet. Okay, now something else, and Andrew, I think, is still on the phone here. Andrew's group is in California and Phoenix, and this has come up again. I didn't hear about it until I was doing some role play with Andrew's group in California. However, this is something to prepare for. This could be a conversation in the future in your market that you're having with a potential seller. I'm not going to pay the co-broke fee. Let the buyer's agent get it from the buyers. Is anyone, other than my friend Andrew in California, maybe, anyone seen how there's downward pressure on fees, particularly on co-broke fees? Has anybody experienced in that?
Denny, it's a bit different over here in South Africa because, as you know, we service both buyers and sellers over here.
Yep.
But similar to what you guys are experiencing, we are seeing the smaller agencies, because we have, for the last 3 months we've started feeling the diminishing stock and desperation of buyers and sellers to compete, which is adversely working against each other. So when co-oping with other agencies, we do see that they're not honoring the commission splits anymore. We are seeing ridiculous splits of 1% or 0.5% commission, whereas over here we work on 7.5%.
All right. So thank you for that, Barry. Andrew, are you able to talk, or are you kind of like out on a hike of Camelback or something? No worries. So if you had a seller saying that, how would you handle that? Because we're going to take the other side of it here in just a second. So what if your market got to the point where the sellers are only paying a listing fee? Anybody want to do that as a role play? You can be agent or seller.
Denny, I'll do it.
Which one you want, Don?
I'll defer to you.
No, you pick. You're the guest.
All right, I'll be the agent.
Awesome. Well, Don, thanks for coming over. I don't mind listening with you, but I'm not paying the buyer's fee. Let them. I just want us to work on X, and then they're gonna have to pay their own agent. So, are you okay with that?
Okay, so other than that, not paying the co-broke fee, is there anything else preventing us from getting started tonight, Denny?
Look at that, man. I'm so impressed. No, I think I'm good if we do that.
Okay, so you're good if we do that. All right, well, let's talk about this together. So, it sounds like you don't want to pay the other agent a co-broke fee. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right. And are you saying not paying them anything or just reducing their fees? I want to be clear on that.
Well, you said your fee was X, and I'm just going to divide that in half. So we're going to have X divided by half, and that's what I'm going to pay.
Okay, I appreciate that. And if that position were to hurt you, I would assume you would want me to share that with you, correct?
Now, I don't know if you guys caught that. I think that's a very, very nice question because remember, there's no bad questions, just good questions, great questions. That one caught me a little bit off guard because he brought up what? He brought up potential pain. When you can do that in a way that's non-threatening, he's almost saying like, hey, look, you know, if you're going to run off a cliff or something, you want me to let you know? So nice job, Don. So, well, I don't know how it could hurt me really. So what do you mean?
Well, that's okay. That's not everybody knows that, Denny. So don't worry, you're right on track. Most of my sellers have that same reaction that you just had. So that's perfect. What happens in the co-broke situation, and especially with agents, well, let me back up. Do you think in this current market with not many homes for sale, do you think a buyer's agent is selling more homes these days or less homes?
Well, I think there's fewer homes being sold. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree 100%. You're right. There's fewer homes to sell. So buyer agents obviously are making less money to begin with. And where this comes back to hurt you is that if an agent is only selling 2 or 3 homes a year, they're going to start searching for the homes that pay them more. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but Don, let me ask you a question. Who says they're not getting paid? Why can't they be paid by the buyer's agent?
They certainly could be paid by the buyer's agent if they have the skill set to do that. Unfortunately, many agents probably don't, and it's an easier out for them maybe just to go show homes that they feel that they're being compensated a little bit more.
Well, good luck to them. I mean, there's only like 2 homes for sale in this whole subdivision. So do we have the upper hand or not, Don?
Right now, as a seller, you are driving the bus, Denny, and I just want to make sure that we continue getting as many passengers on the bus as we can, because the more we get on the bus, the better for you. So let's say we bring an offer to you and you're netting X amount of dollars, and that X is not satisfactory to you. Do you have to sign that contract, Denny?
No.
That is 100% correct. So if we can, for lack of a better word, if we can squeeze more money out of the buyer and the buyer's agent and increase the net to you, are you going to be okay with that regardless of what you pay the other agent?
Now, again, I'm going to stop here a little. Not a bad strategy. He's focusing on net, which I think might work. And well, I guess theoretically, if you can sell it for more money to a point, I may not, but right now I want you to offer it with no co-broke fee.
Okay. So it sounds like you want me to offer it with no co-broke fee.
Is there an echo?
Yes, there is.
Okay, nice. Keep going.
Einstein heard an echo. Yes, there is an echo. So if that hurts you, though, you already acknowledged you would want to hear about it, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
So would you think if we have more buyers in the game, that's better for you than less?
Well, it sounds like we're going around the same mountain, Don.
Yeah, we are. We are.
Well, I'm pressing you for a reason. Why am I pressing you? Anybody know? I'm wanting him to do something. Can you read it behind me?
Right. Okay. All right.
Never walk away. So the bottom line, are you going to take the listing?
Absolutely. Yes. 100%. You can't increase a co-broke on a listing you don't have.
Right. So if you can't read it because you're on your phone, it says never walk away from a listing in this market.
Yep.
So All right. So who wants to take over from Don? Don, you asked some great questions. In my opinion, that wasn't the time, you know, you laid it out there like, okay, like a doctor would, if, you know, if you have an
Right.
adverse reaction to the medicine, or if I see something going on in your body, you do want me to tell you about it, right?
Yes.
So it's not the hill to die on yet. Get
Right.
the listing. Just
Right.
take the listing. Now, how will you be able to demonstrate? I want someone else to pick up, maybe where Don left off as an agent. In fact, before we do that, let's go over to here. I want to know, thank you. Good job, Don. I want somebody else to step in now. I'm coming in as a buyer, and you are giving me a buyer consultation, and you tell me in this market, many of the homes that basically offer compensation, some don't offer compensation. And so for the ones that don't offer compensation, the compensation is going to come from me. Is anyone in that environment or want to take this on as a challenge? Because I know.
Catherine says she has a question.
Who does?
Catherine?
Catherine, go.
My question is there at some point when you get an offer and you notice there's no compensation for the listed in MLS or whatever, and you have the offer, how would you actually discuss that with an agent who's submitting an offer to you?
Well, the compensation agreement is in the MLS, not in the contract. Now, I've had some conversations with some agents I've talked to and coached around the country that sometimes agents will be specifying their compensation in the contract. I don't pretend to know everyone's state law, although I think that's probably not right in any state because the contract is between the seller and the buyer. The offer of cooperation between agents is not in the contract for the real property. So when the contract comes in and there's only X number, it's, you know, it won't specify. And then you specify MLS, Catherine, that there's zero compensation for the buyer's agent. There's zero compensation for the buyer's agent. Does that answer your question?
It does, but to go just a little bit deeper, how would you have that conversation with an agent who is bringing an offer to you without any compensation?
All right, well, I'll do that and we'll come back to this. Okay, so you're bringing me an offer on my listing. So Catherine, you did see an MLS. There is no co-broke on this. Is that correct?
I did see this, but I still believe that I need to be compensated. So how can we work this out so both sides are compensated?
Well, that's up to you. Like, for example, do you have I have a compensation agreement with my seller. Do you have a compensation agreement with your buyer?
No, I don't.
Maybe you should.
And this is where our loyalty agreement comes in, that
Right.
with our buyers,
that's where we're going.
or with them.
We are at the consultation now. Yes.
Right.
It's that simple, you guys. Now listen, does the other agent have any idea what the compensation agreement is between you and your seller? That's no.
No.
It's not 50%. It can be anything you want. You could be getting 1% or 10% and offering to co-broke 0% or 8%. It doesn't matter. And guess what? It's none of their business. On the other hand, do we have any idea what their compensation agreement is with their buyer? We've listed the seller. They should be listing the buyer. And so I would just say, are you aware there's no compensation? Many agents may have missed it. Listen, I'm in this for the long haul, and I say buyers and sellers come and go. I always treat other real estate agents as co-peers. We're all doing this together. I don't look at them as competition ever. And the longer I'm doing this, the more I have to kind of like back off a little bit, because I don't want anyone to think because, you know, I've been doing it a long time and I'm overpowering them. I'll actually go back the other way to make sure they feel comfortable, because I hope we'll do a transaction. So Catherine, I think you're good with that. Let's go to this right now. Who wants to be given a buyer consultation on this scenario? Does anybody want to do it? If not, I'll have to take it.
I'll give it a shot, Denny.
James, you already were a cranky little butt on the last one. You're going to be better?
I'm a bit cranky. Now I'm trying to get you to like list with me, right?
I'm gonna pay you back now. Okay, so what do you mean, James, that I have to pay you a fee? I thought the sellers paid the fee.
Well, the sellers do usually pay the fee, but here's the thing. In this market, a lot of sellers are not paying the fee. You want me to find every available property for you, right? Especially in this tight market.
Yes.
And also I'm going to put in a lot of time and a lot of effort on your behalf, correct?
Okay.
So don't you feel that that time and that effort in finding you the perfect house in this incredibly tight market is worth compensation?
Well, I don't know if it's worth $25,000.
Well, let me ask you this. What do you think it is worth?
Well, what if we would do an hourly thing? You know, I mean, let's say find a house in a week. You work 40 hours, and so maybe it's worth $5,000. How about that?
Well, you know this market. Do you think I'm going to find a house in a week?
Well, what if you did?
Well, that would be pretty amazing. Then we have to also put together the contract. We have to get you in. We have to win the offer, and we have to get you that house. So that all takes a lot of time and effort. And you feel like you want to pay hourly for that?
Might be better than paying $25,000. In fact, I can probably look. You know, James, I can find somebody that's not going to charge me to do this. So,
Who can you find that won't charge you for this, Denny? That's going to have a fiduciary duty to you to find you the best property and do what treats you as if they were treating themselves. What you're paying for is someone who is out looking out for you as if they're looking out for themselves. Isn't that important to you?
yeah, but I'm sure there's other agents, right?
Well, there's a ton of agents out there, but it doesn't mean that they're going to go looking for every single possible opportunity for you to find a home. They might just look on the MLS and say, well, sorry, Denny, nothing this week. I'll check back with you. Is that what you want?
Let me ask you a question. Do you have an ethical obligation or maybe a legal obligation to show me properties regardless of compensation from the seller?
Absolutely. If you're my client, I sure do.
So if they're not offering anything, you still have to show them to me.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And do you feel that that's fair on the seller's part to say that we're not going to pay you anything when I do all the work to find a home for you?
Okay. Now understand that tack he is going. Okay. So he's taking a solid tack. Now, awesome. Good job, James. There's another tack you could take as well. Maybe more than one. Let's just reverse it. James, so all right, so let me ask you, if you were to buy a home that the seller's already compensating you, let's see, you're compensating, you know, me, your agent. Do you feel the seller has that built into the price?
You're saying that the seller already has built in a commission into their MLS listing?
Yeah, if they're willing to pay, you know, sellers, the listing agent and the buyer's agent fee, do you feel the seller has built that cost into the fee? The price, I mean, built that,
yes,
that
well,
fee into the price.
Yes, I would think so in this market that they're expecting that they're going to have to pay that out. So they take that into account when they price the home.
Okay, so like for example, you buy a nice little sports car, you know, and they've got these chrome wheels and cool rims on it, blah blah blah. Do you think the dealer has those priced in or not?
Absolutely.
So you buy it as a package.
Right.
So likewise, if the seller then, to be competitive, doesn't have that fee built in, and so basically our agreement means I would get that fee. Wouldn't that probably end up being of the same number? Meaning you're buying the house for X% less and you're paying me X%. What would it look like if those things were the same? And so you're not paying any more for the house.
Well, I'm trying to figure out if I'm paying for the house and paying you 3% on top of that, or whatever your percentage is, how does that wind up being the same price for the house?
Because the seller, let's just use your numbers. What if the seller was asking 3% less on his asking price because he's not throwing in the wire rims? So you buy the car without the wire rims and put the wire rims on after you buy it. What if you end up at the same spot? Have you lost anything?
You haven't, no, I haven't lost anything.
So I mean, theoretically, I mean, that's the way it kind of works, isn't it? So that's it. Now, all right. So any comments, you can put a comment. Now we got somebody watching the chat. You can mic yourself because we only got about 30 people on here. So any comments or pushback or questions on that?
What if the seller just wants to get more money since he has leverage?
Okay. All right. So let's just assume Sonny, stay with me. You asked that question. And so you want more money. Okay. So let me ask you, the asking price is 800. How much more do you want?
50,000.
Okay. So if you had 850, now let's say the market went up to 850, and you're willing to pay the fee on that, correct? You're willing to pay your listing agent, me, the listing agent on that, right?
Correct.
And you're not willing to pay the buyer's agent on that?
Agni asked the question. Did he answer that, Agni?
Kind of. So, Denny, what I was getting at is that what if the seller just wants to make more profit because he can in this market? So, in this scenario, I mean, yeah, if the market was at 850 and he's going to get 900, what if, yeah, he's going to pay you because you're representing him, but he has no obligation to pay the buyer's agent and he doesn't want to? What if that case a scenario occurs?
Okay, well, I mean, isn't it possible? I'll just role play with you. So you're the seller. Yeah. Is it? So I understand now. Let me ask you, if you have more agents bring their buyers into your home and you have more people wanting your home than fewer, would that drive the price up?
Sure, it could.
Right. I mean, that's what happens when you get multiple offers, right? Because you have multiple people making an offer. And what percent of those offers do you feel are coming from agents?
Not sure. I mean, it's probably most of them, probably 80% of them.
Yeah, it's probably like 100% of them. Just letting you know.
Right.
So in theory then, because we have more people looking and, you know, buyers are kind of strung out, they're very weary in this marketplace. Theoretically, you could get more money for it, right?
Theoretically, yeah, sure.
So in theory, then, if you got, and I'm just going to go back, I'll use 2.5 this time. If we typically co-broke 2.5%, because we have that extra amount of buyer activity and that auction type environment, what happens if it drives your price up 2.5 or 3%? Would it be worth paying the other agent 2.5%?
Yeah, it would. But if I can get away with paying less than in this market, maybe I would.
Well, if you don't know until you get into the market. I'm just saying.
That is true. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. If you're worried about making money, why are you hiring me?
Because I believe you have the knowledge, and I guess you're going to be working on my behalf and representing me.
Now, how many people about fainted when I asked him that question? It's almost like I'm attempting to turn him into a for sale by owner.
Yeah.
Does anybody know what I'm attempting to do with him? He's willing to pay me. I want to know why, because he wants to make money. Why doesn't he just do it on his own? Anybody know what I'm attempting to do?
Show value.
You're trying to show the value in yourself and in the other agent.
Yes, one at a time. If he said, well, I guess I could do that. Well, if I am free to you, in fact, I'm better than free. And you guys, I've got new people on the call here. And this is, so I'm going to go, actually, I'm going to transition into the question. If you don't mind, I can come back to that if you want. We're going to transition into the question. Saffron, you asked me about, I think it was Saffron, about a for sale by owner doesn't want to pay the fee. Was that your question? Are you there? Can you talk?
Got a little background noise, yes. Sure.
So would you like to role play that with me if you can, if you're not too loud where you are?
Yes, I'll try to go.
So be that for sale by owner. So Saffron, other than the fee, is there any other reason why you wouldn't hire a professional like me to get your home sold? Somebody partner up. Go ahead. I want to see some pushback here. So somebody who would like to talk and be their partner, you can be her sister, or you can be her brother or whatever. Somebody partner up because you're sitting at the table. What might a for sale by owner say?
I just think I could sell it on my own. I don't need representation.
Okay. And you know what? You could. So you're choosing to have a conversation with me, and you could sell it on your own. No questions, no question about it. Why are we having the conversation?
I've never had any good experiences.
Moses, tell me more.
Well, you know, I think agents just want to make a lot of money, and I want the money.
Okay.
So
got it.
like years.
So your experiences is, I mean, so you want to put the money in your pocket. So money is important to you, right, Moses?
Yes, it is.
What else? I mean,
that's pretty much, well, as a seller, that's all I care about.
Okay. Yet you allowed me to have a conversation with you guys. Why am I here?
Well, you called me and you sounded nice, so I wanted to hear you out.
All right. Well, you wanted to hear me out. How would you like to hear this? If you were thinking about painting your house, right? And you need to be painted before you sold it. I'm not saying it does. Let's hypothetical. You could go and paint your house, right? I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to put paint on a wall, right?
No, do I have to pay for it?
Well, if you do it yourself, your labor's free. You still have to buy the paint.
Okay.
Right? So what if somebody knocked on your door and said, hey, look, you know, I've been a painter in town for 15 years and I just feel led to bless someone and pay it forward. So what I'd like to do, Moses, I would love for you to allow me to paint your house for free. No strings attached. You know what? No strings attached. I'll paint your house for free. Would you let him do that?
Well, it depends because now I feel obligated. So what did you, what was your goal?
He's just being nice.
Okay, well, if it's just kindness, of course, I'll accept your kindness and, you know, maybe we can drink some margaritas.
Yeah, or maybe you'd refer me to somebody else someday.
Possibly, yes, of course.
Okay. Now, that would be a pretty good deal for you. Now, what if the painter did this? Well, I tell you what, Moses, I like your name. You remind me of the Old Testament. So I'll tell you what. You had a rough time back there running around the mountain for 40 years. Let me ask you this. I'm going to give you a better deal. Not only am I going to paint your house for free, if you'll let me paint your house, I will pay you to paint your house. What would you say to that?
Okay, I like money a lot, but you can't interfere with my schedule in any way.
Man, what's wrong with you guys today? You guys are cranky. All right, no problem. I'll work around your schedule. I will pay you $1,000 if I could paint your house. Would you take me up on it?
Yeah, sure. Come on over.
Okay. So I want to tell you that quick little story to say, you know, I'm that painter. Basically, I'm not painting your house. I'm going to sell your house basically. And not only am I going to do it for free, I'm going to put money in your pocket. So you're the one that said you wanted to put money in your pocket, correct?
Yes.
So if I can demonstrate to you where you and Saffron both can understand that you will make more money by hiring me and save time because you don't have your time invested, would there be any reason why you wouldn't want to move forward with me?
What do you think, Saffron?
I'd like you to demonstrate how he's going to do that. Okay,
so that is a script. That is the level of question you would want to get the appointment. So when you're at the table, and this is even going to work for a non-for sale by owner who the seller is attempting to basically pound you because they think they can, and they want you to list the house. Not only not pay the co-broke, they want to take your fee down. And there's companies out there doing that. And it always happens in markets like this. The hope you sell is to go away when the market gets tough, right? So How would then, and I'll allow you to take control, there is a systematic way of doing this. It's very easy to remember, very logical, and it works inside rational people. James is a little irrational today, so probably wouldn't work on James. So just kidding, James. Who would know the steps in order to show your value? And there's more than one way to do it. So tell me what you got. What's your magic?
Well, Denny, I would say that, you know, if you're trying to sell it yourself, right, then people are going to think that you're getting a bargain by buying it from someone who's selling it themselves. So they're automatically going to want to come in at a low ball price because they figure, you know, if you're selling it yourself, you're not paying a commission, I can get it for a cheaper price. So they're probably going to try to knock down the price right out of the gate.
Okay, that is what's interesting is that is kind of the script that's been around a while.
Yep.
It may or may not work in this market because I could say, oh, look, in this market, notice the first thing Sefron said is I can sell it myself. First of all, don't disagree with them. And the strategy you want to do when you're having conversations, when you can be parallel, be parallel. Then go right angle when you need to be right angle. Y'all know what I'm saying with that. Don't fight them on everything. Give them line, let them run, and then when you set the hook, question them, reel them back in. I get that, James. But you know what? You know, I go back to the Die Hard movie. I negotiate contracts, you know, for a living. I can handle that.
Well, that's great. Let me ask you this: how do you know what the top dollar is for your home?
Well. Now he's starting where I'd like to see him start. How do you come up with a price? And if it's already on the market and you're talking to them, it hasn't sold, they have a decision to make pretty soon, right? They're going to change it. What are they going to change it to? Well, what I did was I took the Zestimate and multiplied it by my wife's birthday month. And that's our asking price.
How's that working out for you so far?
Well, she's born in January, just my luck, right? So I only multiplied it by 1. So I'm just taking this estimate and add a little bit to it.
And how's that going so far?
So far, it's good. It's only been 2 days.
Have you had any showings?
I got 7 people lined up.
Any offers yet?
No, I haven't had the first showing yet.
Don, help me.
Oh, you can dish it out. Just can't take it, James.
Well, Denny, that's great that you got 7 showings already. I'm curious, would 70 be better than 7?
Interesting question. Well, maybe. I don't know. I mean, are you saying you could give me 17 showings?
There's a greater likelihood of getting more showings if we cast together a bigger net out there versus just one line at a time.
Okay. I'll concede the point.
You want to cast that net?
No. You haven't got me in pain yet. You're biting around the Oreo, but you're not biting the center of it.
So Denny, what are you going to get out of selling it yourself? What are you looking to get? What do you want?
Now, again, let me just walk you through this, and it may, you guys can judge. There's no right or wrong. You might find your style. This is how I do it. So Don and James, you're at the table. So let me ask you, okay, so let's just assume that it's, you know, it's been on the market. It could be the same scenario. So let me ask you, you guys, how did you come up with the, let's say they haven't listed it yet. I'm going to ask you, how are you going to come up with the asking price, you guys?
If we sell it ourselves?
Yes.
Well, we've gotten, you know, all kinds of brochures in the mail, and we look at Zestimate. We know what Bob and Sally got down the street. So we're just going to add a little bit onto that, on top of that, in a rising market, and go from there.
So we're having this conversation. So I should have asked this first. So if you guys sell it yourself and I were to bring a buyer in, would you be willing to compensate my firm you know, X percent if I bring you a buyer that gives you what you want?
Yeah, I would. I don't know about James. What do you think, honey?
Well, I think as long as we get above what we, you know, are asking for, where it's not coming out of our pocket, I'm good with it.
Yep.
So what you're attempting to do and your motivation, basically you said, going back to the other conversation, your motivation to sell it yourself is to put more money in your pocket. Do we already agree on that?
Yes.
Okay. So in essence, if you're going to pay me X percent, which is, let's say just 2.5, because I don't like the X, then you're attempting to save 2.5%, correct? By doing it yourself.
Yeah.
So in this market, do you think it's working in your favor or working against you as a seller? No right or wrong answer.
What, by just doing it ourselves?
Well, no, just being a seller in general. Do you think this market's working in your favor or working against you?
No, working in our favor for sure. That's why we're thinking of doing it ourselves.
Absolutely. And you know what? You know, I'm just going to agree with you. You'll have no problem selling your house yourself. You really will. You won't have a hard time with it. I just wonder, I'm just worried about you leaving money on the table. Would you be concerned about that?
Yeah, I don't want to leave money on the table.
Well, how do you know you're not going to?
Boy, I guess I don't put it that way.
So let's assume that we've had the painter discussion already, so we don't have to go back through it. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to paint your house for free and actually put money in your pocket. So let me ask you, when it comes to pricing, I'm just going to ask you this basic question. If you were actually, you know, bow and arrow, and then you were out shooting bow and arrow, is a stationary target easier to hit than a moving target?
Stationary.
Right. And the market right now isn't stationary. In fact, it's moving faster than we've ever seen it before. So the challenge we have as agents, and we're in this full time, is finding out where that next buyer is going to buy, because it's a moving target. And have you heard about maybe some of your neighbors putting their home on the market and they might get multiple offers, maybe 15, 20, or 30 different offers, right?
Right.
So do you think it's at all possible? Number one, when you price it, you might price it, you can misprice it a little bit. Now that probably isn't a big risk here because the market will overcome that. However, when you're looking at the offers, that you might pick the wrong offer that looks the best but has a lower probability of closing. Is that possible?
Yes, that is possible.
You don't sell houses every day, and it even happens to us, yet, you know, we do our best not to let that happen. So for the start and stop again, there could be some costs associated with you, because you said you basically have a new home being built over there in Brentwood and they'll be ready in 60 days. So it could delay you getting there, right?
Right.
And that could cost you some money. Secondly, let's say you find an offer and you basically then you go to negotiate on that one offer. Is it possible that someone, the seller, because they're not a professional negotiator, is negotiating against another agent who's representing the buyer, that you might not get the very top dollar from that buyer, maybe 0.5% or percent, you know, just only 1%. That could be like just $8,000, or 0.5% is $4,000. Can you see how that may happen?
Yeah, but James is a pretty good negotiator. I think he'd probably just tell the buyer to take a hike if we can't get up that price.
That's a great tactic. Yes, it can work, but it's conceivable that you wouldn't negotiate. You may not be able to negotiate, and that might be your best offer. And then basically the next offer comes in isn't as good as that one. So you lost out because you left money on the table, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm very logically, and this is a great tactic. I won't bore you going through all of it because a couple other things I want to cover. Start from the beginning, the pricing, and then the periods of negotiation. The pricing, they may miss it by 0.5% or 1%. The negotiation of the contract, they may miss it by 1% or 0.5%. And then what happens, they don't know how to put in all the different, you know, the contingencies or the non-contingencies, the appraisal, the inspection. You see, you're only attempting to minimize 2.5%. And you guys, look how hard it is for us, so we do this full time, to navigate a challenging moving target type market. So at the end of that, oh, by the way, what's their time worth? Oh, by the way, they're going to have to hire someone. Saffron, you still taking notes? They still have to hire someone to do the contract. And that's in New York. You guys have to do that anyway. And what about, in some states, they might have some legal liability because we're a title insurance state, not a lawyer state. So there could be some liability in that. So what you want to do is walk them through. If you have someone that's willing to paint your house for free, in fact, better, pay you to paint their house, why wouldn't you want to do it? That's one of those D8 type questions that'll make them think. And then at the presentation, just start chipping away. It reminds me of the Boy Scouts years ago. Anybody who was a Boy Scout, remember the soapbox derby? They used to give you a pine block, just a square block, and we used to have to carve. I was never very good at carving, right? So what you're doing is you're just carving it down little bit by little bit by little bit to, quote, sell your value proposition. Any blinks on that? I think something came in the chat. Did something get in the chat, Sonny?
Well, what I was going to throw out there too, Denny, was like, well, it sounds like what James and I are doing, we're attempting to go to court and be our own attorney and negotiate against a professional attorney. That's the picture that you're painting.
Absolutely. And when a seller says I can sell it myself, the statement of paralleling would be what? How do you parallel? I can sell it myself, Don.
Yeah, and you could probably cut your own hair, right?
There you go. Well, no, you could ask, do you cut your own hair?
Looks like it.
I said, it's crazy. My barber should be giving me a discount every year I go because there's less of it to cut.
Me too.
That's the parallel. You don't listen.
There is something on there. Denny, can you script about challenges for for sale by owner low appraisals?
Okay, give me more information.
Kaylee Hicks.
Kaylee.
Yeah, you touched on it, Denny, about the moving target. Sorry that I submitted that question.
Okay, so are you good?
I'm good, thank you.
That's another point, Kaylee. Thanks for bringing that up. That's another point, you guys, of paralleling. You're working with the buyer. Well, I'm worried about appraisal. You know what? Well, it's really not paralleling. It's kind of like that. It's just telling the truth. Well, don't worry. I guarantee you the appraisal is not going to come in. It will not appraise for what you're buying it for. How many people would have that direct conversation? Because the next topic you guys asked about is exhausted buyers. Who brought that up? I'm going to cover this in the next 6 minutes. Exhausted buyers. Who brought that up?
I did.
James.
Sorry.
You're going to get a participation medal. So give me the scenario.
Well, we had one gal, like I say, in our group who, she'd taken buyers around. She'd submitted 3 offers well over asking price. They cut down inspection times, and literally the woman broke down and cried when she lost the 3rd house. I've got buyers right now who've gone from looking for a home to looking for a lot to trying to build their own house, and the cost of construction is going up, and they're getting frustrated. And we've been working for months trying to find something. We're looking for, I'm looking for old expireds that, maybe want to sell at this point. We're digging holes everywhere trying to find some gold, and it's the buyers are getting frustrated.
So can you put yourself in channel one of those buyers?
I can try, sure.
So James, we just lost out on a 3rd house. Tell me what's going through your mind.
Well, I'm getting pretty exhausted here. I've been renting, and we're trying to find a place, and what am I going to do, Denny? I mean, I need a home at some point here, and I can't keep competing with these cash buyers. They're killing me.
So let me ask you this question. This is because we need to know this. On every home that you lost, did you give it your very best?
We felt like we did. I mean, we went well over the asking price. I mean, we thought we were making a solid offer. So, yeah, I felt like we did.
No, I'm gonna ask this question. We're gonna go back and watch game film on this. The 3 houses you lost, and we found out what they closed for. If you would have had inside knowledge to know that that was the price it was going to take to buy it, would you have paid that?
Yeah, okay, so we would have offered it, but then we also are not cash. We weren't willing to waive, you know, an inspection. So I think our contingencies are what, you know, is probably killing us.
So your price was up there, but you have contingencies, right?
Right.
All right. So then let's just, this is a lapel to lapel conversation, James. Whose fault is it that you didn't get the house?
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's my agent because they didn't present it well enough to get the deal closed.
All right, don't get wonky on me again. Come on.
What do you want me to say? Oh, it's my fault. Okay, Denny. It's
Well,
my
no, I mean, you guys, I'm having a direct conversation with him because one of two things is happening if your buyers are exhausted. Number one, they're not giving it their best, which is a possibility, or they're giving it their best. I mean, they're VA and they don't have down payments and there's certain things they can't get away from and they're losing out. Do you understand the difference in those two scenarios? That's like a guy saying, I can't get a date. Well, you haven't showered in 3 months. Take a shower. Kind of gross. So how, and do you think that's a little bit too forward of a conversation to have with a buyer? How many, raise your hands if you're on camera, would ask the buyer that, did you give it your best? No, not many cameras, which is something we have to talk about. So back to you, James. You there? James,
yeah.
Okay. Back to you. What would it have looked like? Now, number one, we're using financing, correct?
Correct.
What is the probability that you're not going to get financing?
Well, if it doesn't appraise anywhere close to where we wind up, then I don't know if I'm going to be able to bring that much cash. So
aside from that,
then I think, no, there's no other reason.
Point, you guys, if you're working with buyers that are putting financing contingencies in there and they already are pretty sure, or, you know, they have to be reasonably sure, and they probably are, that they can get financing, take the contingency out. Who should bear the risk? Not the seller. Why should the seller bear the risk? It's a buyer's financing. So based on the houses that we've lost, you would have paid that price, right? If you'd have known that was the price it was going to take to get it, correct?
Yes.
Let me ask you, why didn't you offer it?
I didn't think we'd have to go that much above ask.
So was your attitude no, listen guys, listen to this. This is really good. Was your attitude, how little do I have to pay in order to get it? Or was your attitude committed to getting it?
Well, my attitude was, I think I'm making a solid offer for the house that I'm getting for the price. So I made what I thought was my best offer at that time.
Well, you know what? Watch this. Who could say this? What you want doesn't matter. Now, you guys, I would say that. Our job is to craft an offer in a hand glove fit to the seller that's within your realm of affordability. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
So moving forward, the only way that you can probably feel better is you give it your best shot. Because right now, you've lost out on 3 houses and the prices are going up. Which is the greater pain, to continue to lose out on prices as you're trying to come in 1 penny over the finish line, 1 penny better than the rest of the other offer, or and you don't get the house, or you get the house and you probably find out later, you know, your offer was $5,000 or $10,000 higher than the other offer. Which one is the greater pain?
Well, at this point, not getting the house, so I need to get a house.
So what is the lesson, you guys, if you're having exhausted buyers? What did you learn from that? I gave you a couple of different ways to approach it, how I would do it. What's your aha on that?
Hey, Denny,
Yeah.
don't you think that's going to be come off as too harsh to the buyer? Like they're already down, and now you're telling them that what you think doesn't matter.
Well,
I mean, I know how you couched it. I mean, I know what you mean, but wouldn't have come across that way?
How did it come across to you guys?
Honest.
Matter
Realistic.
of fact.
A little cranky.
That's you. Okay, just look in the mirror, dude. If a doctor's going to have a conversation with you and say, you know what, that test came back and it doesn't look good, which conversation do you want the doctor to have? Well, just spray some Windex on it. Or do you want to have a heart-to-heart? Now, again, if the bedside manner didn't fit you in that situation, again, I was being a little bit direct.
Right.
There's ways to apply a little bit of love into that.
Right.
However, that in essence is the conversation you have to have. Who is to blame on this? If you're not giving it your best and you follow the procedure that we don't set prices, we set expectations. I think that's the mess. That's the conversation I think we need to have. Your comments as we go. Any ahas today? You guys are super quiet, and I miss you guys being on camera. So,
yeah, I think the aha is essentially if the buyer doesn't give his or her all, then it is their thing to, I mean, not to blame, but it is their fault at the end of the day.
yeah, probably
You have to take ownership of that. I mean, I guess the way you have to phrase it is that they own not putting their all into the offer.
Yes. And the only part I felt a little bit cringy when I was going through that is when I said, whose fault is it? I don't like the way I phrased that, because there's probably a better way. I mean, who owned that, or whose responsibility was that? You know, it's rather not, I don't mean to be putting a finger on the sore spot. So probably that's where you're picking that up. So any other ahas, you guys?
I got two, Denny.
Right.
The first one was on the listing presentation where I was going around the mountain, a second or third time, was just the reminder, hey, take the listing. And I guess, maybe ask them, but after I got pushback on the second or third time, it's like, all right, Denny, we'll put it out there for a 0%, and then we'll see what happens. I mean, you and I can have an honest conversation to see how that's working. That was number one. And number two was on that proving the value. I've heard it before, but I got it today, is chunk it down. So what happens if you miss the price by just half of 1%? What happens in the negotiations and the closing costs if you negotiate something that they would have paid, that another 0.5%? What happens if the appraisal, the inspection, the home warranty, if you add up 0.5% and 0.5% and 0.5%, there's your 2.5%.
Right.
That was really good. Thank you.
Glad you got it done. Thanks, man. One more and we can go.
Denny, from my side, just thinking about the distressed buyers, and I'm currently working with a 4-buyer seller chain, which I didn't want to get involved in, but it's selling a property, buying a property. And now with my final link in the chain, I've got a remorseful buyer, and I just got knocked back to motivation. And then honesty, I mean, he's being difficult regarding his seller not signing because she's looking at a home that she wants to close on, and he's impatient with her to sign. Now, if he's on the stand where he wants to just cancel everything, what is a few more days going to mean, which the seller asked for? So I think it's time to get brutally honest with him, and he needs to tell me, listen, is 3 more days okay? Or because he's going to cancel anyway, or is he just going to cancel it now and not even wait to see what could have happened over the next 3 days?
That's a brilliant aha. That's a brilliant aha, Barry. Appreciate being on from South Africa. One day we'll be there. You guys have an awesome week. And thanks for being on, as always, and Facebook group. We'll see you next week. Don, I'm coming to your town soon. I'll be there this weekend. See you, buddy.
Thank you, Denny.
Thanks, Denny.